Hey, what is going on? Welcome to the video, welcome to the channel. My name is Jazz. Alright, so Xiao's been out for a few weeks now. People have been doing a lot of testing and theory crafting about what his best builds, weapons, and team comps are. There's a few different approaches you can take to building him and his team. Today we're going to take a look at one that I like a lot, I've been using and experimenting with quite a bit. This build centers around the Thundersoother artifact set. For those who don't know, this set has a two-piece bonus of 40% electro resistance. Of course, that's not really what we're interested in. What we're really after is the four-piece set bonus, which says you will deal increased damage against opponents affected by electro by 35%. Now at first that 35% might sound like a lot, and it is, or it can be, but when you factor in the other giant damage buff that Xiao gets from his Q ability, that 35% starts to become a smaller and smaller percentage of his overall damage as his damage ramps up. So as for the main focus of this video, I'm going to be examining whether or not this 35% damage increase to enemies affected by electro is worth giving up your two-piece Viridescent, two-piece Gladiator build you might normally run on Xiao. So I'll give you a breakdown of the gear, some tips and tricks, team comps, and calculations that'll hopefully help you decide if this is a Xiao build you'd like to try. Okay, so with all that said, I'd like to ask if you could please leave a like on the video. Please consider subscribing to my channel. That'd really help me out a whole lot. And without any further deliberation, let's hop into the video. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off by talking about team composition. So the main heart and soul of this team is going to be Xiao and Fischl. I really like Fischl with Xiao a lot. She has all kinds of different ways that she can proc electricity while she's not even on the battlefield. Another option that I considered for this slot was Beidou. If you have some good energy recharge for her and can maintain really good uptime on her elemental burst, she might be a good option too. But I really like Fischl a lot because of the capabilities that her bird Oz has. What you can do is run Sacrificial Bow with her, and that way you get 2 charges of Oz. Because the thing about Oz is that he has a 10-second duration on the field and then a 25-second cooldown. So if you only have 1 charge of your skill, you will cast him and then have to wait another 15 seconds after he disappears to be able to cast him again. And this build demands demands that you have some way to proc electricity on the field at all times. Now I also considered running 2 electro characters, so like a Fischl and a Beidou on the same team, but I found that Fischl with the Sacrificial Bow alternating back and forth between her skill and her burst, I pretty much have a source of electro almost at all times, and if I don't, there's a couple other things I can do to sort of pass the time in between. I really like Jean on this team. I really like the Animo Resonance just for the help it gives you with your cooldown, and also she can generate Animo Orbs to help you build your burst back up faster. So that's very important for Xiao because you want to be in his elemental burst for as long as you can. Okay, and the 4 slot is pretty much whatever you want to do. I've been really liking running with Diona. I really like the extra healing she gives. My Xiao, I only have his elemental burst at level 6, and he doesn't get down to minimum health drain until he gets to level 7 elemental burst. So if I hit his burst once and I'm in it for the full duration, I'll lose half my health. And so when I'm up against these big tanky hard-hitting Spiral Abyss enemies, I lose half my health from doing my burst, and then I'm taking some hits. I might need some extra healing. Okay, so the other thing is I like having Diona as a cryo character because if my Xiao is out of charges for his elemental skill, he doesn't have his elemental burst up at all. What I can do is proc Superconduct between Fischl and Diona, and then I can reproc Electro, so I might have an enemy that has Superconduct and Electro on him, so I'm getting the Superconduct bonus for physical damage, and I'm getting the 35% extra damage increase from the Electro, and I can just do some auto attacks and charge attacks with Xiao until I get his skills or his burst back up. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and hop into my gear. I'm not really going to get too much into weapons for him. The calculations I'm going to do a little bit later don't take weapons into account. For one thing, there's not really anything that increases damage against electro enemies as far as spears go. So there's a lot of good option for spears for Xiao. So pretty much you can use whatever you want. The only weapon I really am going to say something about, I already mentioned this before, the sacrificial bow, really important to have on Fischl on this build, just so you can have Oz on the field procking electro as often as possible. All right. Okay, I'll go ahead and show you my Xiao artifacts. Yeah, I do only have 4-star artifacts at this time. I'm only level AR 37, but I went ahead and farmed up a set of Thundersoother that I think is pretty usable, and in the calculations that we'll get into a little bit later, I do account for level 20 artifacts and level 8 skills. Yeah, so here are the artifacts that I'm using right now. I do recommend a attack percentage Sands. We'll talk more about Animo Goblet versus attack percentage Goblet a little bit later on. For me, my Animo Goblet is a little bit better. It has percentage attack, and my attack Goblet has flat attack. So for me, it works out that this one's better, but for you, it might be something different. And I do have a circlet with crit damage here. Okay, as far as constellations go, I do have Xiao at Constellation 1. This gives you 1 extra charge for your elemental skill. That helps for DPS for 1 because his skill does a lot of damage, and it also helps you to make orbs to get your Q back faster. If you have C6 for Fischl, this would be really, really good. You get 2 more seconds of duration for Oz, and you get to another way to proc electricity on enemies. But if you just have 0 or 1, that's perfectly fine as well. Jean with C4 would be insane on this build. It would really be insane, yeah, on any build with Xiao. But you would what you'd be doing is decreasing opponents' animo res by 40%. So throw this on top of the bonus damage from enemies affected by Electro, on top of Superconduct, all that stuff, you're going to be doing some crazy damage. But of course, you don't have to have it. There's lots of other pros to running Jean. Okay, so yeah, as far as some of the drawbacks of this build go, there are a few. So to be able to do maximum damage, to be able to do damage better than you would be able to with any other artifact set, you need to be attacking an enemy affected by Electro. And of course, the thing is, some enemies are innately affected by elements that aren't Electro sometimes. Now, if you have an Electro Slime, say, that that they do have that innate Electro, you are going to get the damage bonus against them without having to inflict it yourself. But if you have, say, like a Pyro Slime or something like a Cryo Abyss Mage or something, as soon as you try and put Electro on any of those enemies, it's just going to react with their innate element and go away. So you're not going to be getting the damage bonus against some enemies. There are going to be times when Fischl's Oz is down. You don't have any way to proc the electricity, so you have to be asking, like, what is my DPS going to average out to? If I average out the times that I do have Electro procced and the times I don't have Electro procced, your actual DPS is going to be somewhere in between, because unfortunately there's no way to keep Electro up 100% of the time and always be attacking enemies that are affected by Electro no matter what. There's no way to do that. Even if you have 2 Electro characters, there's going to be times when you are attacking enemies not affected by Electro. So we have to take that into consideration. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the damage calculations that I've done. I went ahead and calculated some relative damage numbers between different artifact sets and between different types of goblets. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. Okay, so the numbers you're seeing on the screen now are simply relative calculations for damage and attack multipliers for different permutations of Xiao with different artifact sets, different goblets, and whether or not he has the Thundersoother buff active. They're not actual damage calculations. I'm not accounting for enemy and character level, enemy defense, resistances, or weapon stats. So yeah, in other words, I'm just using a simplified version of the damage calculation so that we can easily compare and rank these different combinations of gear. So for all these, we're starting off with a theoretical base attack attack of 1,000 and an artifact attack of 1,000. We have to account for both of these because if we do the same calculations using only base attack numbers and then adding only the attack increases we get from the specific artifact sets and pieces that we're talking about, our numbers will end up being skewed in favor of attack percentage over damage percentage. Trust me, I've tried it both ways. But in other words, since our characters have both base attack and artifact attack stats in the game, I have to account for it here. I just chose the number 1,000 because it's a nice, easy number to work with. So for each equation, you'll see a left parentheses and a right parentheses. Basically, anything that says attack, including base attack, goes on the left. Anything that says damage, like a bonus animo damage percent, goes on the right. So the first 4 equations are for Xiao with the Thundersoother set. So let's talk about those first. As far as the numbers and percentages that I'm plugging in, you see the 86.1% you see in every one of the equations represents the damage multiplier that comes from Xiao's elemental burst at level 8. For all these, we're assuming Xiao's in his burst because that's where he deals the most damage, and that's what we're trying to min-max the most. Okay, next you'll see 35% there to represent the damage multiplier that Xiao gets from attacking enemies affected by electro while using the Thundersoother set. This multiplier is only in the top 2 equations. I thought it would be interesting to compare his damage with and without the buff to see how much he actually loses when he attacks an enemy that's not procced with electro. Okay, so other than that, in the Animo Goblet equations, numbers 1 and 3, you'll see the 46.6% to account for the bonus damage from an Animo Goblet, and in the attack percentage goblet equations, number 2 and 4, you'll see the extra 466 attack in the left parentheses to account for the 46.6 increased attack from an attack goblet. I'm assuming all these artifacts are level 20, by the way. So as expected, Xiao does less damage without the buff than he does with the buff, and if all of the factors are equal, it looks like an attack percentage goblet gives you the highest damage. That is, if all other factors are equal. This means if you have an Animo Goblet with better substats than your attack percentage goblet, just go with the Animo Goblet. This is actually the case with my set. I personally have a better Animo Goblet with higher attack. And in the end, it gives me more damage than my attack percentage goblet. I tested this over and over in the game and confirmed it. The truth is that they're just so close in damage anyways, like within 2% of one another on paper, that good substats will easily make up the difference. So if you have both, just use the better goblet. And as a side note, if you do not have the Thundersoother buff up, the Animo Goblet does more damage on paper. Okay, so now on to the really interesting part. If you take a look at equations 5 and 6, for these I switched out the Thundersoother set for a 2-piece Gladiator, 2-piece Viridescent set. So what's happening is we're losing the 35% bonus damage against enemies affected by electro, but we're gaining 18% attack and 15% bonus animo damage. Between these two, the Animo Goblet comes out on top, but only by a little bit. And again, only if their stats are equal. If you have both, just use the one with better substats. Look at how close it is between number 2 and number 5. There's almost a negligible difference in damage between the Thundersoother set with the buff up, with an attack goblet, and a Viridescent Glad set with an Animo Goblet. So that pretty much brings us to my conclusions and recommendations. There is technically a higher potential for damage with the Thundersoother set, like you could take it to a boss fight if you know you can burst the boss down very fast, but since the difference between the Thundersoother and the Viridescent Glad sets is so minuscule, just to the point where better substats on one or the other could easily make up the difference, I just can't in good conscience sit here and recommend Thundersoother over the more conventional Viridescent Glad. It's just too easy to lose out on DPS with Thundersoothers, and the difference is so tiny even when you do manage to keep up the Electro buff, that the pros of the Viridescent Glad set just outweigh the pros of Thundersoothers. Also remember, it's impossible to keep up Electro procs at all times, and if you're attacking an enemy not affected by Electro while you're using Thundersoothers, your average DPS is going to plummet. With the Viridescent Glad set, though, you don't have that problem. You're just at full damage all the time, and there's definitely something to be said for that. But for me personally, I've put in the work to get Thundersoothers. I enjoy the playstyle. I enjoy the potential tiny bit of extra damage that I can get from it. So I'm going to continue to use it for now, at least until I can reliably farm up some 5-star artifacts. Then I'll probably try and get some good Viridescent and Gladiator pieces, but I'm probably done farming artifacts for Xiao until I'm AR 45, maybe AR 40, we'll see. Okay, so with all that said, I really hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope I might have been able to share some useful information with you. If you could please leave me a like on the video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much again, and I'll see everybody in the next video.